Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. You are welcome to this second session of our work on GST 807. In this session, we'll be concerned about the characteristics of open and distance learning. Now, this is necessary for you because as a learner within this system, you ought to come to understand the system and all that the system affords for you, so that you will be able to key in into this system in such a way that you will not be a misfit within this period of your learning in open and distance institution. This is why this is a compulsory course and it has to take place in your first semester. This evening we'll be looking at the various characteristics of open and distance learning, from the openness to the distance to its technological driven characteristics, and by the end of this session you will be vast about what this system is all about. Let us go to class. So you are welcome to this session on the characteristics of open and distance learning system. I am your facilitator. Olubiyi Adeniyi Adewale is my name, a lecturer in the Department of Religious Studies, National Open University of Nigeria, Abuja. The learning outcomes for this session is to enable you to be able to list the characteristics of ODL, discuss these characteristics, compare the ODL system with the conventional system of education, and finally, you'll be able to evaluate the concept of openness in open and distance learning. Now, the first major characteristics of open and distance learning is the separation of the teacher and the learner. Now, this separation occurs in two levels. It occurs in place, it occurs in time. By place, we mean that the teachers and the learners do not live or meet at any point. By time, which may not exist in one country except if that country has more than one time zone, it means that the teachers and the learners are not active at the same time. Now, this separation between teachers and students in place and time is usually constant in open and distance system. Now, the openness, which is the key philosophy behind the open and distance learning. Openness can be seen in about three different characteristics or areas. We have openness as to people, which means that access is being given to higher education to many people by reducing the rigidity of entry requirements or by removing them entirely. Openness as to place comes up in the removal of the boundary of educational institution, which insists that learning have to take place within the walls of a classroom within a university campus. But today, this philosophy has given us the access to classroom via smartphones, and this allows students to access their materials wherever they might be, in a bus, in the train, in the plane, in their office, as well as in their homes. And one of the most important aspects of openness is the openness to ideas. Now, this means that educational institutions should open their courseware to the world. Now, open content was coined by David Whaley in 1998, and it refers to educational content that can be reused, revised, remixed, and redistributed without violating copyright laws. Now, this led to the birth of what we know as OER, Open Educational Resources, and also the MOOCs movement, which is Massive Open Online Courses. And it will be of importance to you to know that NOUN is a participant in both concepts. Now, flexibility is another major benefit of ODL, and which can also be seen in three areas. flexibility in time, flexibility in place, flexibility in pace. Now, when we are talking about flexibility in time, a student can always go back to what has happened during the synchronous class because the synchronous class is usually recorded and returned back to the student's portal, which it can now contact asynchronously. In other words, not being able to make a class will not rob the student of participating in that class as it will have taken place within the conventional system. Now, the flexibility in place, we have also talked about this, is that the students can learn anywhere they want to, especially people that are working and can be transferred to another place. You can easily find yourself a study center in the new place where you are transferred to. And finally, flexibility in pace, which has to do with the learning speed of the learner, which says that a learner that cannot cope with the academic load of a semester can just register the number of courses he or she can cope with as long as he has more than the required credits, a minimum required credit for that semester. Accessibility. Accessibility, apart from the relaxation of entry requirements, refer to learning opportunities to individuals who are disadvantaged because of their location, because of their gender, because of economic constraints. For example, prisoners are being graduated from National Open University of Nigeria today because through ODL, the prison that has usually closed them to the outside world has been broken down by the integration of ICT and National Open University study centers. Women in Puda too, who hitherto cannot go out of their husbands' houses, are also accessing higher education within the confines of their house. And also, many physically challenged people, the blind, the deaf, the mentally challenged, those who are sick are also having access to a higher education. Affordability. NOUN runs flexible payment plans, which makes it affordable for students, apart from the fact that students can also register for the money they have. And finally, in Open University, when you have paid your fees, you don't pay any other money, you don't buy any other thing by anybody. So it's quite, for me, one of, if not the most affordable university in this country, it is one of the most affordable. Now, ODL is technologically driven. And because of the technological advancement and the various opportunities it has opened up for educational delivery, we can talk today about e-learning, electronic learning, mobile learning, and ubiquitous learning. So, for teachers, ICT helps to enhance their skills and knowledge. And for students, ICT enables them to assert control over their learning environment. And this makes the educational experience richer and much more conducive for critical and higher order thinking. Another characteristic of open and distance learning is the fact that the courseware is usually mixed media. It moves from the print to the radio to television broadcast to audio to video to computer-based instruction and also telecommunications-based instruction. Now, interactivity. This is another important aspect of open and distance learning because interactivity is the only way that the problem of distance between the learner and the lecturers or instructors can be reduced. There are 4 kinds of interactivity. We talk about learner to content, and this comes up when the learner studies or examines course content and other instructional activities. Learner to instructor interactivity is that interactivity between the learners and the facilitators, which are intended to reinforce students' learning or understanding of the course content. And this can also include delivery of the information, encouragement of learner, provision of feedback. Learner-to-learner interactivity is the exchange of information and idea that occurs among the learners about the course, whether the instructor is present or absent. It can be between one and other learner, and it can be among several learners. And this can take place in form of group projects and also forum discussions. Learner to technology. This is one of the major aspects or characteristics of open and distance learning because of the use of technology, which is a major medium in open and distance learning. So there is no way a learner interacts with the content without interacting with technology that is used to provide the content. So learner to technology interactivity is the interactivity between the learners and the technological tools that have been used to present the content. And the next characteristics is that ODL is learner-centered. It is no longer the system whereby the lecturer is the most wisest in the class and disseminates information to the students. But in the learner-centered, the lecturer is in the middle. He allows a kind of interplay of exchange of ideas between himself and the students among themselves. You could see the graphic representation of what we are saying. This one represents the teacher-centered system, and this one represents the learner-centered system. Now, as we come to the end of this overview of the characteristics of open and distance learning, I want you to think about this. Write on it. What is the future of open and distance learning in Nigeria, considering the characteristics of this system? And this is where we will end this session, and I'll say, see you in the next session.